tell you why you are here, right? You know why you are here. How many of you don't know why you are here? You a bit blurred, say, why am I here? Put up your hand.
I also don't know why I'm here.
You don't know why you are here?
I don't know.
Okay.
What's the reason?
You pakat lah, both of you pakat.
I thought of previous. Yeah, previous, right?
Very good. Very good. So, in other words, we are actually a very close-knitted family. We don't have to be very formal. We can be very casual and personal because this man here suffered 2 heart attacks. He has got 3 stents inside you. 3 stents. We all can call him the bionic man because there's some metal inside him. He actually was assaulted by a hand grenade that is meant to kill him. But our friend is still here today. When he was at the prime of his youth, I would say, he suffered a very, very rare disease, inflicted with such a rare disease that some of the doctors at the initial stage do not know what was going on with him. But today, at the age of 56, 58?
57.
57, he has completed 2 books. And even as I am speaking, he is writing the 3rd book. How many marathons have you run? 20! This guy says he's going to write 4 books in a year. This guy. So I think he will beat your 20 marathons in maybe 5 years. Right? You are 20 and counting, so you better challenge him. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Major Andrew James Ong. Let's give him a big hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeremiah G. I was wearing shorts to school. I was 15 years old. Right? So we managed to keep in touch. And first and foremost, I want to thank all of you. Today is Tuesday. I mean, many of you called me, Andrew, do you know what day is the 10th of March? I said, yeah, I have a diary, I have a calendar. I said, yeah, it's Tuesday. Why are you doing it on Tuesday? I said, no other dates were available. Right? So I want to thank all of you for, even though it's a weekday, for making your way here. And without telling you too much about the book, I will just say why I wrote this book. I have traveled to about 200 cities in 40 different countries over the many years, and some of you may have even traveled to even more countries. And there's an experience that Singaporeans experience that is almost universal. We meet people who say, hey, you are Singaporean. Wow, I like your government. I like your MRT system. The country is so clean, you know. And consistently over the years, I hear all these remarks being passed. Right? So I say, okay, what about the other side of the spectrum? Yes, your government is very strict. Singaporeans are crazy. You mean you cane people for vandalism? You are not allowed to chew gum? Yeah, so they have all these comments about. So I asked myself, since SG50 is coming, what shall I do? I said, perhaps I should do something. And I contemplated that my first book was called Common to Uncommon. My publisher is here, Chinga, please give him a round of applause. And I asked myself, perhaps a title like An Uncommon Nation would have been a very good sequel to Common to Uncommon. And one night, Friday night in Kuala Lumpur, in the little corner drinking my teh tarik. In Kuala Lumpur they call it teh something. What is that? They don't call teh tarik. Teh tarik? What do they call teh tarik? No, something, teh something they call it. So I was drinking my tea and I drew the map of Asia. Okay? And I drew Singapore there and I saw a little red dot. And I reached out for a red pen in my bag and I colored the red dot from Singapore. I colored it red. And then as I colored it red, the idea of an uncommon nation, I realized in these three words there's a letter I. And a small letter I has got a dot. And uncommon nation has got a dot there. And I superimposed the little red dot on the map of Singapore. I said, perfect. Jerry was celebrating his birthday a few weeks ago. And I took a picture because it was drawn on the tissue paper, you know. The Sarawak store had tissue paper. So I drew an uncommon nation on a tissue paper. I took a picture with my cell phone. I sent it to my friend in Singapore. She's not here tonight, right? And she said, Andrew, brilliant. So that began a journey of contemplating and deciding what were the chapters that would make a good book like Common to Uncommon, an Uncommon Nation. So I said SG50, 50 chapters, like 50 different accomplishments and challenges, the trials and tribulations of a nation, and how we emerge from all the trials relatively unscathed. Now, some of you have read the book because you all were my very close friends and you have information about the book. Some of you have told me this book should be a history book for Singapore education system. Yes, because sometimes when you travel down Chinatown, Orchard Road, when you see crowds, you know, tourists, you know, and then this guy, the tourist guy, explaining chewing gum. I think they did a great injustice to the saga behind the chewing gum. Do you all know that when we ban chewing gum, CNN, BBC, the whole world media converged on Singapore and they question, you know, and in some way, of course, we all know the government maintained our stand, right? And somewhere amongst the audience, there was a BBC reporter had asked, you know, research has shown that if a person does not chew, the creativity level of his brain is not being activated. So this question was posed to Lee Kuan Yew. And Lee Kuan Yew said, well, I didn't know about that. But since that is the case, if they cannot think because they cannot chew, perhaps they should try a banana. Yes, that was exactly what Lee Kuan Yew replied. And all of you, if you do a little bit of research, you discover that around the same time, Singapore was about to sign the free trade agreement with America. And on the agenda, there were two issues. One was the war in Iraq, and the second one was chewing gum. Apparently, Wrigley Spearmint, the world #1 producer of chewing gum, okay, was lobbying for the fact that the American government should not sign the free trade agreement with Singapore unless we lift the ban on chewing gum. Of course, you know, if you are Singaporean, you know how our government views things like this. They stood their ground. And of course, Wrigley Spearmint did a little bit of research and presented a new medical finding that within the spearmint chewing gum, there's an element called enamel. And enamel is known to be able to strengthen gums and teeth. And they presented it during a conference and say, this is the finding. And you know what the government's response was? Some of you are laughing already. Jen? Yeah. They said, okay, be that as it may, we will allow chewing gum to be consumed in Singapore, provided it is sold by a dentist. And it has to be prescribed by a dentist or a medical practitioner. Not enough! The name of the patient is to be taken note. Based on that, they signed the agreement. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to present Singapore in this light. So when I glean and I chance upon information like that, my mind was transported back to the days when I walked the streets of Chinatown, Orchard Road, and I overheard the tourist guide doing injustice, you know, to our chewing gum, our ban on chewing gum. Of course, the latest now also, the same BBC reporter who questioned LKY about the chewing gum now has also reported that there's a town in London who is right now considering to introduce Singapore-style ban on chewing gum. My dear friends, okay, you are here today, in your hands now you have a document that's not talk only about chewing gum, it talks about 50 separate distinct accomplishments and some of the very, very difficult situations in which our country went through. Now, the other reason I wrote this book is because I have 3 children, right? I look at them and I look at my life growing up in Singapore. I want to let you know, some of you will agree with me or experience it yourself. I grew up in a house where there's no water, no electricity, no toilet, and no kitchen. We do everything on the newspaper. We wrap it up and nobody's looking. We throw it, on the big longkang. How many of you here went through that? Some of you went through that, okay? But I researched 500,000 Singaporeans actually live in conditions like that. And in 1947, there was a British report on the back page of the book, you have already read it. In 1947, the British Commission on Housing, based on the infrastructure of cities, they assessed Singapore to be the worst slum in the world. Now, to be a slum is already bad enough. But we were not just a slum, but we were the worst slum in the world. And the living conditions were deemed to be a disgrace to civilization. Now, when I chance upon that information, I look at my life. I say, I personified that experience, Jeremiah, when we were talking about who wrote the foreword, also experienced the same thing. So, why did I write this book? Because the conditions by which I grew up and the conditions that my children and children of their generation growing up are completely different. There's nothing wrong with them. We do not fault them. But there's an economic concept called the diminishing law of marginal returns. If you have never seen what it was like, your world is exactly what you saw. God has blessed me and my children grew up in relative comfort, never in need or want of anything that will stimulate their minds, the body, or the spirit. We gave them everything. And their world of what the real Singapore is completely different. I decided to write this book. I had my children in mind, that if we do not know where we came from, we will be ill-prepared to prepare where exactly we want to go. Alright, so there is, I think most of the people here I see across, maybe with us, Nicholas is the youngest. Nicholas, by the way, is also an author. I met him. Can we give him a round of applause? Thank you for coming, sir. Very young. Now, with the exception, Nicholas and maybe Jack here, looking very young, yeah? Most of us would have either personally experienced the deprivation or know of somebody who experienced it. But I'm telling you, our children will look at Singapore in a completely different light. And I do not know how much debate this little book will generate as a result of this uncommon nature. A few people have read the book, okay? The first person to read the book, some of you, if you are following me on Facebook, you will have known Inderjit Singh was the first person to get a copy of the book. Because he couldn't make it today, I invited him because Parliament is in session, so they're actually debating on the budget, yeah? So he couldn't make it, he sent his regards, yeah? And the second person was, by the time I came back, it was Chinese New Year Eve, So I gave Inderjit Singh a copy of the book, and he said, Andrew, did you know what happened to PM? I said, yeah, he's in the hospital, he's undergone some surgery. So meaning to say he's not very mobile, So meaning to say he can read, So I actually wrote, something very nice. I said, Inderjit, sir, can you give this to PM? Wow. On the second day of Chinese New Year, during dinner time, Inderjit Singh texted to me, and he's my good friend also, and said, Andrew, I want to just let you know, moments ago, PM has got a copy of it. So ladies and gentlemen, I present the little journey this book has encountered so far. Right? So before I hand over to Jeremiah, I want all of you here to acknowledge some people who are very important in my life. I got to know them through a very interesting media called Facebook. Right? Do you know what would you do if you are 73 years old and you suffer a heart attack and you have, not me, if you are 73 years old and you suffer a heart attack and you have one stent inserted, and then not wanting to be dependent on your family, you decided to build yourself. And this man, little did he know, in his journey, he started running to rebuild his body. And he started running, and he ran, and he ran, and he started running in marathons. Okay? I was blessed to have met him, and I called him up on Facebook. I said, can you give me permission to write about your story in my first book, Common to Uncommon? Ladies and gentlemen, this man has run more than 20 marathons, and he's 83 years old this year. He has won every marathon award, not just in Singapore or the region, but in the whole world. He has ran in the Boston Marathon, he has ran in the Tokyo Marathon. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Mr. Kong Hong Fa. Please stand. I risked inviting him to my launch. You know why? Because he's going to be more famous than me. But it is okay. All of you are encouraged, please. Okay, go and take a picture with him. He'll be most glad. It will be a picture that we'll be proud to have known that this is the man. Yeah? He's also a close friend of mine, inner circle in the Facebook. You can find him if you are already my friend. So Maya, here you are. Take it off. Thank you.
Amazing. This guy is amazing. I aspire to be like him when I will be 83. Let me tell you something about Andrew. When he was a kid, and about 15 years of age, I knew there's something peculiar about this guy. I can't put my finger on it. In my mind, I thought either he's a genius, or he is crazy, or he is an alien. All three. But I think from hindsight now, I can see that our friend here has got a little genius in him. So he's Singapore Albert Einstein. A big hand for Mr. Andrew Ong. First of all, I'd like to thank those of you who bought the books. It is our privilege to have Andrew with us, and then now that you have a copy or two of his books, my only hope is that you can pass the word around and let your friends and your loved ones know that there is a history book that they can read. I can remember very clearly when I was a boy, I dread going to my grandma's place. My grandma lived in Chinatown. And during those years, we all are adults here, right? So, if you don't mind, I just be a little bit blunt here to say, if ever you go to the toilet in Chinatown in the 1960s or the 50s, they don't have flushing toilet. They have what we call the pang sai tang. Those bucket that you have that you pull from the outside. So you may be sitting or squatting on the inside, then suddenly you hear a sound, boom, then you look out, the pang sai tang disappeared, gone. And then they put in a new one. So I remember I must be the first one in the morning to go to the toilet, because when you're the first one, it's always fresh and clean and new. If you follow later, maybe about 8 or 9 o'clock, that tank was already full. And I remember when it was full, I have to do some magic. I put toothpaste on my finger, and then I will be sitting down there smelling the toothpaste, because that thing down there is horrendous. So much for my childhood experience. And I'm sure most of you here, when you pick up the book and read, you will say, yeah, I experienced that. Yeah, I remember that. So if you have an aha moment, or you say, oh yeah, I think that is a good enough take-home message for you. So that book is worth every cent that you put in. And not only that, now I'm going to make some announcement. This book that you buy, if you look inside, there's a coupon. Do you have a coupon within the book? If you don't have, you got to raise your hand because we're going to give you a coupon. That coupon is for you to go out to the lager room to have a drink. So if you have a coupon that says beer coupon, beer, B-E-E-R, you can have a free beer. Or you can choose to have a beverage like coffee, tea, or a soft drink. If your coupon says a stout, meaning you can have a stout or some hot drink like coffee, tea, or a soft drink and no beer. So please check your book and make sure you have a coupon because that is FOC for you. It's complimentary. And don't forget, later when we disperse from here, if your book has not been photographed by Mr. Andrew, we will have a table out there for you and you can just sign, or he can just sign the book for you, and at the same time you can take a picture together with him. So that would be like a little souvenir for you. Now remember, the book that you bought here, there's no GST charge. If you go outside to Popular or other bookshops that has his books in the stand, you'll be charged a GST of 7%. So this is really a bargain here. You get a book, you get a drink, a beer, a stout, or a soft drink, and then there's no GST charges. So, and on top of that, yes, you've got to take picture with our friend here. So this is really, really a bargain. Of course, those of you who already
but then drink by tonight.
yeah, that's right. So when you go out from here, you have to consume your drink by tonight. If you come back tomorrow, they'll tell you sorry. So if you are going into that lager room, you have to sign in, right? You have to sign in? Ah, okay. So you have to sign in. I think Andrew will help you to sign in. Now, those of you who are here, you have listened to us share a little bit about the book. Are there any questions that you have in your mind that you want to ask the author? Anybody?
What is the most difficult chapter that Andrew wrote?
What was the most difficult chapter that you wrote?
This one must explain a lot of things, something like pay money, you know, pay money, but it's okay. I think what I did first was in the two book attempts I've done, the most difficult part was not the writing. So I just want to let you know, those of you who are aspiring to be writers, the difficult part for me was not the writing. The difficult part was the contemplation before the writing. Meaning to say, I had to first identify my reader, who the readers are. And then once I know who the readers are, I decide 50 chapters, right? So I actually wrote the contents page first. So I had about 60 different chapters. Of course, finally I narrowed it to 10. And I think the most difficult part, CK, chapter 1. Right? And I think God blessed me with the clarity that as I wrote chapter 1, don't look. What happened was, in 1987, I remember, I was at that time with the commandos. Right? The chief commando officer told me, Andrew, National Day is coming. You're supposed to lead the whole commando formation parade in leading the song. And the song for that year, National Day, was There Was a Time. So as part of preparation, I had to go and buy the cassette tape. At that time, don't have CD, buy the cassette tape. I listened to the cassette tape on my way to office. When I went back, I reached home, I take out the cassette tape, put in my what I play. I sort of like ingrained, listen carefully, I ingrained the lyrics and the tune of There Was a Time into my DNA. So on the actual day, and some of you remember, in the run-up to the actual National Day, it was published in the newspapers that our neighbors in the north
because our airwaves reached them. People in Johor were singing our National Day song. It was reported in the press. Yes. So what I did before I led the whole commando formation to sing the song was to tell them that all of you be reminded that our neighbors in the north were already singing this song, and they're not even Singaporeans. How much more we ought to sing with gusto, you know. I tell you, 2,000 strong commandos, they were all inspired. I think where? Northeastern border of Singapore. On the radius of 50 miles, we blasted that morning, right? So I want to let you know in my run up to preparation of that song. That is why I say I used to grow up in a house without water, without electricity, because the first line of the song, my dear friends, there was a time when people said that Singapore couldn't make it. And when I sang that part of the song, I recall my childhood now. Every day my parents were struggling, you know. I mean, if you live in squatters, you can imagine, and there were 11 of us. We were wondering, can our parents really bring us up? But we did. There was a time when trouble seems too much for us to take, but we did. Yeah, so the whole thing came, you know. So chapter 1, CK was the most difficult, but it was also when I overcome that, it laid the groundwork for the entire 49 chapters. Because in chapter 1 alone, I talk about each of the other subsequent 49 chapters in one line, And I superimposed that history of Singapore upon that song. So if you don't have time, guys, just read chapter 1. Thank you. Any other question? Yes, somebody wanted to ask me some questions earlier, and then I said ask when the session is in progress. Who's that? Jerry? Question? Didi? Sharon? Sharon, where are you? Sharon, come, go to the microphone. Yeah. I sit down.
Hi everyone.
Relax.
Hi everyone. Okay, so
That's Sharon, my friend I met, also aspiring writer.
Is this mic on? No. It's not on? My test.
Tap it.
Okay, hi everyone. Good evening. I'm Sharon. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here with all of you wonderful people. I've met Sir Andrew together with my friend Pamela. When I met Pamela, we had a common thing. We wanted to write a book, and though we have different ideas of what book to write, because I'm into the financial advisory line, and I only cater to the females, so I'm a woman specialist rather. Whereas Pam, she is more of marketing, right? So when we actually got together, she introduced me to Mr. Andrew, and I met him in, he was very casual, not so sharp looking like today. So when we met, the one thing that he told me, because he also had an experience in my life, he said, Sharon, you got to believe in what you do. You got to believe in what you do, despite whether, you know, whatever other people say, you got to believe in what you do. And that was something that that kind of woke me up and wow, okay, if I'm not going to believe in what I do, then who else will, right? So my question to you today would be, what inspired you actually? What inspired you to write this book and dedicate it to Singapore? Because everyone else has written books and it's always for many other reasons. But as a citizen of the nation, you chose to release it in SG50. So what's that?
Thank you, Sharon. Can we give a round of applause?
Thank you.
Some of you who are friends of mine in Facebook, you may recall in early 2014, shortly after my first book was published, I actually I made a post and asked all the 2,000 over friends of mine and their friends, what do you think what do you think are Singapore's finest achievements in the last 49 years, leading to the 49th National Day, which was last year August. So I gave them about 8 months, and there were many people who just, and Albert, are you here, Albert? Where's Albert, my boss? Oh, he's left already, he'll go attend another party. Albert and the whole gang were all, and maybe John, you too. Yeah, many people just went to say something, multicultural, we don't have riots, many things, So when I started writing, I was getting ideas, right? So I want to let you know, of all the ideas that came, only about 3 were finally appeared in the book. Yeah, but there were many people who commented on each other's posting. So to your question, what motivated me to write this book, as I mentioned earlier, was that I did not feel justice was being done by the people who are representing Singapore's history to the world. Because the tourists that come, and then we have many immigrants here, in Singapore who have made Singapore my home, And if I think that they are not giving the correct picture, then we're going to have a whole generation growing up in the next 25 years with a warped history of our country. So things like chewing gum, things like caning. Do you cane people for eating chewing gum? Yeah, this was what the girl said. Because if you chew gum, not only will you fine you or you are caned. I said, no, this is bad. Nobody get caned for chewing gum, right? So we had to put all the records in. So one of the things that motivated me really was that I felt a duty to write it. And then of course, Inderjit Singh is my friend. Inderjit Singh, I have coffee with him, I go and see him, I kepo, nothing to do. Meet the people session, I'm there. So I tell him, sir, because he helped me before. So I said, sir, I'm thinking of writing this book. Hey, yeah, you better write. Every time I went, you better write. Come December, he said, Andrew, where's the book? I said, January. Oh, too late. He told me too late. I said, no, never mind. January. So Jinka, that's the reason. Well, my publisher actually in January, he said he couldn't do it. So I finally found somebody who can do it. Okay, but never mind. The reason why we had to push was Inderjit Singh of Andrew. He's running out of time. So at a very neck-breaking pace on what's that? Something like from chapter 1, I was telling in 30 days, the whole draft was completed. Well, I'm crazy. Jeremiah mentioned a little bit of that, I'm crazy. And by another 30 days, we met with Chris Bisnan. Chris is my publisher, my printer. Yeah, and after that I met her, I flew to Philippines. When in Philippines, we're getting the endorsement and all the reviews from the Philippine potential presidential candidate, So we finally got it. I told her, Chris, proceed. Thank you very much. Give this a round of applause, Yeah, and Chris told me this is the first time that she's met with an author who approved and said proceed with the printing without looking at the draft, And I owe it all to Jinka. Why? Because Jinka was my first publisher. And I was a Mr. Perfect, If a comma was missing, I said change. So over the course of time, Jinka told me, Andrew, no book is perfect. And I realized it on the first day I got a copy of the book, I scoured and saw 7 mistakes. Yeah, 7 mistakes. So that was good preparation. Why? Because, Chris, because of that I was able to tell you, go ahead, never mind. Right? So far I saw 4 mistakes already, but never mind, it's minor. That doesn't change the whole meaning. So Sharon, thank you for asking that question. I just want to say that was my motivating factor for writing the book. Thank you.
I would like to thank all of you for coming, and I hope that you have a good read when you walk out from this place. I'm sure, like me, you'll be glued to that book until the last page. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you at the autographing session when Mr. Andrew walks out on the place at the table. If you haven't have your book autograph, please go and see Mr. Andrew, and at the same time take a photo with him. Thank you so much for coming.
This man, you have to look at him. Yeah. Okay, this is man. He has brought me up and guided me to who I am today. I owe it to him. This man, Andrew Ong.
Take picture. Kyok Tae also was under our command in the commandos, Simon you there. Okay, and he is one of the rare guys who, because his IT knowledge was way above the nation. He was the first past the post. So he has been a tremendous help. I mean, when we organized a triathlon, I remember he created the spreadsheet, and we would take everything on live, be able to say well done. So can you tell us, after you have left the army, or rather during the army, what was your sense? When did you get so much drive?
So much drive on, yes. I think it's also on Andrew. I've called him sir.
Yeah. What did I do to you?
What did you do to me? In fact, you give me a lot of assignment and always last minute. Yeah. Everything must be perfect, even a full stop. A perfect man here.
Okay, I'm glad you survived. Okay, because if you survive me, then you can live as LIVE, yeah, and LEAVE. Leave the army and LIVE, the perfect.
And Excel spreadsheet was in DOS.
Oh, DOS format, yeah.
format.
And yeah, those of you who
Windows
IT can
format.
hold this book. The Excel spreadsheet is not what you see today in Microsoft. It was in DOS format. If you understand DOS, it's a very, very DOS. Very difficult.
graphical.
Yeah, not graphical, it's crazy. Right? And this is, some of you may have already heard, yeah? But Mr. Kaur is a man who has run, any man his age, I think not many men left alive today, who has run as many marathons as he had. So Mr. Kaur, can you tell us what's your secret? What's your secret? What's your secret? How come you can do all this? Can you talk louder, yeah? What is the secret? How come you can do all of these things?
There's no secret, only determination.
Determination, hard work, discipline. Wow. Determination, hard work, and discipline. Well done. Thank you, sir. It's an honor to autograph this book for you. Hey! Good to see you. Thank you. This is the man you heard, You heard what I say. Can I take a photo? This gentleman, this is John Chong. Okay, he was a member of the Guard of Honor marching contingent in 1968 NDP, in which that is the only year in the entire history of the 49-year history of Singapore in which during the NDP it rained. Okay? Pouring rain, and they did not cancel or postpone the parade. They proceeded. Okay, but what is important was the rest of the the spectators. Okay, those who brought umbrella, when they saw the marching contingent wet, they folded the umbrella and they put the umbrella because they soaked with the contingent. But John, tell us now, look into the review, how you feel about that experience.
I felt good, but nothing can describe the feeling I had. Proud for the nation. Why I was telling me about about 18, 19 years old. Yeah. Hang in there.